Hey, what's up? I want to talk to you guys about two random things that may seem disconnected, but I think help you. One is, okay, so October 2014, if I'm not mistaken. Was it 2014? I think it was 2014. Don't quote me on this. Facts are irrelevant. Second, no, just joking. October 2014 was the end of Saturday morning cartoons. Crazy. The end of Saturday morning cartoons. I am envious because I don't know what that feels like. Like when I was a kid on Saturdays, my parents didn't have to worry about me because I would get up and I would just turn on the TV and I would be good for a couple hours until I got bored. It's not my kids, they don't got that. It's like, hey, wake up, turn this device on or turn this thing on. It's not like I digress. Saturday morning cartoons ended. CW, the WWWWB was the last one holding up. They gave up and took off their last batch of Saturday morning cartoons. And one of my favorite cartoons was, of course, Batman. And then Batman developed, and they had Batman versus Superman. And there's this villain on Batman versus, actually, it was a Superman villain that I think will be important for us. This villain's name was Bizarro. Now, truth be told, I didn't like Bizarro. I thought he was boring. It wasn't my favorite superhero. Whatever. It's freaking Bizarro. And Bizarro was this distorted version of Superman, right? So everything that Superman could do, Bizarro could do. It was just the evil version, and he was just a little bit worse at it, right? And he just talked weird and he didn't seem very smart, but he still had all the powers of Superman. Stronger Superman, could still shoot lasers out of his eyes, ping, 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 ping. And so that was his thing, Bizarro. So, wasn't a big fan of Bizarro, needless to say. But I think it's important because, Faith also has a Bizarro. It has all the same powers of Faith. It does all the same things that Faith does. It's just Faith. It's just a distorted version of Faith, right? It's Bizarro Faith, as I call it. Fear is Bizarro Faith. So Faith is a belief that provokes to action. Fear is a belief that provokes to action. Insecurity is a belief that can provoke to action. And so all these things, they operate like Faith. They have the same power as Faith, right? But it's just a distorted version or a Bizarro version of Faith. Now, if we're not careful, instead of operating in Faith, we could be operating in Bizarro Faith. And this becomes important. So that's one thing, all right? So I want us to remember that we got Bizarro Faith. The other thing that I want us to think about is this cycle of abuse. This is a term that talks about the relationship between an abuser and his or her victim, the abused. And it is the cycle of abuse in which, for our purposes here, the abuser is trying to impart this Bizarro Faith into their victim. So they're trying to get the victim to think that you're nothing without me. They're trying to get the victim to think that you can't do anything on your own. When I was researching it, there was one doctor who was talking about a woman whose husband was abusing them, and she was afraid to tell the police because they had 5 kids, and she's like, what am I going to do if he's in jail and I got these 5 kids? Lo and behold, she finally told him and went to jail. And after a couple of months, she realized he wasn't doing anything anyway. He wasn't doing anything while he was there. She was still taking care of the kids. She was still doing everything while he was there. But he had convinced her through abuse, right, that she was no good without him. And we've seen this story 1,000 times most of the time when it comes through relationships. But even when we look at American history, when we look at slavery, we see this kind of cycle of abuse, emotional abuse, trying to change the way a person views themselves and the way they perceive the world through abuse. And so it's this cycle of abusing, taking care of, abusing, taking care of. And so where the victim develops this dependency with the abuser. What the heck does this have to do with anything? Well, I just want to tell you guys this story. And it's about the children of Israel, right? The children of Israel were in this land. This is, Exodus 1. This is right after the story of Joseph. He had been reunited with his brothers. And so there was a famine in the land. And I'm just going to give the short condensed version of it for the sake of time. But there was a famine in the land. God gave the Pharaoh a dream about this famine that was coming. Joseph interpreted this dream. And so what he said was that there would be 7 years of plenty and then 7 years of lack. And to use the 7 years of plenty to prepare for the 7 years of lack. So what happened is Egypt listened to Joseph, and when they did this, they were one of the only lands around that still had stuff because of the revelation that God had given Joseph. So when people needed food, they would have to travel to Egypt. And so this was the same with the children of Israelites, right? So getting to the point, the children of Israelites come, Joseph is reunited with his brothers in Egypt. He tells his brothers to stay with him there. So now the children of Israel, that tribe of Israel, is now residing in Egypt, right? And so they begin to have children, multiply, get comfortable, enjoy themselves in Egypt. And before you know it, after years and years, I'm not going to fake like I know the exact years. I'm going to assume at least 100, probably a couple times that. But the children of Israel have really grown, right, in Egypt. And so this new Pharaoh comes who doesn't know Joseph, hadn't heard about Joseph, doesn't give a crap about Joseph. All he knows is that the children of Israel are here and they're taking up space. And he's concerned, right, that these children of Israel will attach themselves to one of their enemies and maybe ally with one of their enemies and take over Egypt. It was that many children of Israel. So he says, we got to build a wall. Okay? He says, we got to build a wall to get rid of these children of Israel. Okay? And so he didn't really say we got to build a wall. He says we got to get rid of the children of Israel. Well, what he decides to use to get the children of Israel in check, right, was the cycle of abuse. He began to deal harshly with them. He began to put them to work. Because again, the children of Israel were foreigners in this land of Egypt, but they understood their place. Other Egyptians understood the children of Israel's place. It was, I wasn't there, of course, but I'm assuming it was copacetic. It was cool. So he comes and he says, no, y'all got to do this. You got to work. And so he essentially makes the children of Israel now slaves, and he deals harshly with them. And when he wants them to do more, he deals more harshly with them. And so he begins to develop, right, this cycle of abuse with the children of Israel. And it begins to affect the way that they view themselves. Matter of fact, he was still concerned that they were growing too much, and he would have them or have someone else take their children, right, if it was a male, and kill them. And kill them. And so the children of Israel were crying out to God for help, saying, God, please, you got to do something. You got to do something. So we know Moses comes, the story of Moses. What is interesting, though, to me, if I can get sidetracked, that the Pharaoh saw more in the children of Israel than they saw in themselves, right? So sometimes people that are against you may see something in you that you don't see in yourself. And you're like, why you got a problem with me? It's because they see your potential, and sometimes that potential can make them uncomfortable, right? Because why wouldn't the children of Israel just do what Pharaoh was concerned that they would do? Why didn't they just say, okay, well, no, we're not going to take your abuse. We're not going to take this. We're going to ally with this person and we're going to take over this place. Why didn't they see that? It's, their enemy, the Pharaoh, saw it in them, but they didn't see it in themselves. And so they end up becoming slaves. They end up becoming victims, and they end up becoming in this cycle of abuse where Israel was their land. They had lodging. They had a place to stay. They had food, but at what cost? They were abused. They were, treated like crap. Fast forward. Fast forward in the future, right? So we were just in Exodus, now we're in Numbers. Not all, but a lot of great miracles has happened. Moses has split the Red Sea, big deal. They're coming to a land that God had promised them, a land that is overflowing with milk and honey, a land that is just beautiful. And so God sends the children of Israel to go spy out the land. God wants some people from the children of Israel to go spy out the land and see for themselves. I don't be lying. And so Joshua and Caleb go, and some others go, and they spy out the land, and they come back with this report. And so they say, man, listen, everything that God said about the land is true. It is beautiful. It is an amazing land. It's fantastic, right? And then a certain part of the people actually everyone who went to spy out the land, really, from what we can tell, except Joshua and Caleb, they add on this part and they say, listen, it's a great land, but we can't beat them. We're too small. We are too insignificant. We are puny. They're giants, and who are we to beat them? And Joshua and Caleb are like, what do you mean? Like, remember the Red Sea? God, he opened up the Red Sea. He you know what I mean? Like, what do you mean? We have God on our side. And so the other children was like, no, there's no way that we can beat them. And they talk, and they begin to murmur with the other children of Israel, and they say something that is significant. They say, why we even leave Egypt in the first place? Did God bring us out here just to die? At least in Egypt, we had beds. That, my friend, is that cycle of abuse. They were killing your children. Your life was wasting away building buildings and pyramids to somebody's ego. You had no purpose, no point, no anything. They were abusing you. They would use you for their amusement, and your response is, at least they gave me a bed. They had developed this dependency on their abuser. They had developed this bizarro faith, this distorted way of viewing themselves, where they saw themselves as small. And what does this have to do with anything? Sometimes when you are coming to God and you are trying to really walk and follow God, you're coming, for lack of a better word sometimes, out of this abusive relationship with the world, with the world. And so sometimes when we hit a tough point or like a challenging point, the deception from that abuse could be, man, in the world I ain't had to do this. In the world, man, this is so easy. At least in the world I had blah, 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 blah. But then just like, I'm sure Joshua and Katie were thinking, okay, yeah, you had that, but you also had the things that you had begged God to deliver you from. You also had the things that you had begged him to set you free from. See, what the world and what the world does sometimes is what this Pharaoh does. They get you to think so low of yourself, so low of your ability to do anything that you're like, man, I can't do this. I might as well just go back to the way I was living. But who said you can't? Joshua and Caleb had been through the same things. They were part of the same tribe. They had seen the same miracles that God had done. But their view of themselves, or their view of God and themselves in God, they didn't have that Egypt mindset. They didn't think. And in their reply, it was focused on God's ability to do, not their ability to do. The Israelites weren't. So I just wanted to, I say all that to just encourage you in this. Listen, life is a freaker. It freaks everyone. No one leaves without, you know what I mean? No one leaves without really like going through some things. And your walk as a believer sometimes can be tough and challenging, but you're way better than where you were. You're way better than where you were. I know it's like, nah, you understand, I don't get this, I don't get that, and I can't stop doing this, and I'm still doing it. You're way better than where you were. You're way better than where you were. It's a weird thing. It's like going back to the story with the mother who had the 5 children. Sometimes we can find comfort in our abusers. Sometimes we can find comfort in our old way of living because it is less restrained. You know what I mean? It's less, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. And so it feels more free, but listen, it costs. How you think you find yourself on the altar? How you think you find yourself asking forgiveness? Oh, it costs. You know what the children of Israel should have done when they were thinking about the beds or whatever they had in Egypt, that they were like, man, well, why can't we just go back there? I wonder if they were always so thinking about their children that they lost, thinking about the abuse that they received. Listen, it's hard in this wilderness going to your promised land, but it's better than Egypt. And so you may be tempted to think about what felt like comfort, what felt like familiarity, what felt like it was familiar. But I'm telling you, also think about those moments that you said you would never get yourself back into. Those moments, those times where you said, God, please. Again, it's tough in the wilderness on the way to your promised land, but it's way better than Egypt. All right, take care. God bless.